Folks, I was checking out Greg Popovich's interview, and he made a reference to this particular individual. And when I did a little bit of research, the phrase redneck racist motherfucker were the only words that did justice. Now, I thought a little bit later on, and there were some other words that came to mind, but redneck racist motherfucker seems to cover it pretty well. The picture that you see in front of you is a picture of Richard Petty. This prick had the nerve to state to America that anybody that didn't stand up for the national anthem needs to leave the country, period. He further went on to state, or ask a question which was stupid, what got them where they're at? And he answered the United States. Well, guess what? I beg to differ. What got those athletes that are on those football fields where they're at was hard work, determination, and drive, together with natural talent. The goddamn flag didn't get a single one of them to where they are. The national anthem didn't get a single one of them to where they are. So for this prick to come out there and say that anybody that doesn't stand up for the national anthem needs to leave the country, and that it's the damn flag that got them to where they are, that's a crock of bullshit. But that's just another line of a redneck motherfucker that doesn't know his ass from the hole in the ground, and he's just a straight out racist, okay? He thinks that because he got to where he is, that everybody can, but he doesn't recognize the fact that there were 4, not 1, not 2, not 10, 4 black NASCAR drivers in the history of NASCAR. Those 4 drivers, I believe, are Willie T. Ribbs, Bill Lester, and I'm trying to think of the names of the other 2 individuals, okay? But there were only 4 of them. Now, specifically, I want to talk about Bill Lester. Bill Lester was, again, one of the 4 NASCAR drivers. I think the other, at least one of the other ones was Wendell Scott. And I think Bubba, thinking Darrell Wallace Jr. Okay, those are the 4. Okay. Specifically, Bill Lester, okay, who is a Hall of Fame NASCAR driver. When he got into the sport, he was roundly booed by the clientele of the NASCAR sport. Now I'm going to read basically his own excerpts regarding his history with NASCAR. And it's as follows. Those that are in NASCAR, that's a culture. These drivers, these crew members and such, they typically grew up in the Southeast. They grew up together. They came up through the system of short track racing, dirt track racing, that sort of thing. They know each other. They all have common beliefs, bonds, culture, and so yeah, they're all pretty much peas in a pod. This is an over-exaggeration, but for the most part, that's the case, as opposed to somebody like myself. I came from the West Coast in Northern California. I have a technical background with a degree in engineering. I came from a completely different type of racing, which is sports car road racing as opposed to NASCAR racing. And when I came over to NASCAR, believe me, I was not really embraced. I have been booed, and it was surprising to me because I think that I did a great job behind the wheel. I think that I respected the sport, but for no reason that I can foresee, I was booed. So that happened mostly at tracks where it's very non-progressive, and I'll just call it out. Talladega, Alabama. I have never been so uncomfortable in a racing environment as Talladega Superspeedway or Martinsville, Virginia, which specifically was one of the places where I was booed very heavily. And I just couldn't understand why. I never made disparaging comments or offended anybody to my knowledge, but for whatever reason, I wasn't really embraced. I was pleasantly surprised about the fact that there were some fans that really did embrace me and say, we're happy you're here. But by and large, for the most part, when you're getting booed loud and clear for nothing that you think you deserve, it makes you sit back and take pause. Those were his specific quotes. Now, where the fuck was this racist ass prick, Richard Petty, when that was going on? And then there's another guy that's basically echoing the same comments. That individual is Richard Childress. He basically said, if anybody protests during the anthem, they would be fired. And a protest will get you a ride on a Greyhound bus out of wherever the event is. Now, there's one person thus far from NASCAR, to his credit, that has stood up in support of peaceful protest. That's Dale Earnhardt Jr. But we all know that NASCAR is primarily a white sport, and it's basically a white Southern sport, if you want to call race driving a sport. Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, and Virginia are where your principal NASCAR tracks are. And if you know the political leanings of a lot of the rural, I'll say rural, clientele that flock to those NASCAR tracks every Saturday and Sunday when an event is held, 50,000 plus strong, for 50,000 people to boo you for the only reason of the color of your skin, that says a lot about the people in those areas. But this prick's specific comments totally ticked me off. So that just really tells you what the situation is as far as a lot, not all, but a lot of these NASCAR people have. Now, NASCAR itself initially issued a comment that they did not want to see anyone protesting the flag. Now, I'm wondering what flag they're talking about. Because if you aren't aware of it, one of the few places that fly a particular flag high and proudly, and I'm talking about the Confederate flag, is over at NASCAR racing events. So when they're playing the national anthem, yes, the American flag is being displayed, but that goddamn Confederate flag is being displayed as well. So now Mr. Petty apparently is telling us that when the anthem is played and both flags are out there, and you decide that you want to protest against the Confederate flag, well, he's basically telling you you can't do that and to take a hike. Fuck him. Fuck the horse he rode in on, and fuck anybody that has anything good to say about him. Period.